Hi. One of the best things that I have done for myself is sign up for ARCs on NetGalley. I have been on NetGalley for, I want to say about a year now. In that time span, I've been approved for really great ARCs. Some of them have become favorite books, some of them have been flops. As someone who is very impatient, and when there is something new and bright and shiny that I want, I need to have it right away. And when it comes to books, NetGalley has my back. Also, sorry if I'm talking very quietly. It's because my parents are eating dinner downstairs and I don't want to be super loud and interrupt them. But I wanted to recap some of the arcs that I've already read and completed this year. NetGalley did not disappoint me this year. They had some of my most anticipated releases for 2025 already up by the end of 2024. I am so happy and blessed and grateful that I got approved for some of my most anticipated reads of the year. I'm here to recap the arcs that I've read so far and let you know if they are books that you should look out for and keep on your radar and read, or if they are flops and you can skip them, because there were some. Okay, the first arc that I read this year, I got approved for it, I think either right at the end of December or in the very beginning of January. And this book doesn't even come out until May. I wanted to wait until it was closer to the date to read it, but once I got approved for it, I simply could not wait. I had to read it right then and there. And that was My Friends by Fredrik Backman. To have gotten approved for a Fredrik Backman arc, my heart, oh my god, I was freaking out. Me and my friend Tia, we both got approved and we were like, we're not waiting, we need to read this right now. I dropped everything I was in the middle of to read this book. The only Backman book I had read before this was Beartown. I finished that book last year, and I know it's part of a series, but that book was so emotionally devastating that I needed to take a break. Before I even get into what this book is about, I need you to know that this was a 10 out of 5 star read. One of the best books that I've ever read in my life. Without a doubt, it is going on the top reads for 2025. And that's saying a lot considering it's only March. This book follows a dual timeline. So in the past, you are following these 4 friends and the best summer of their lives. I want to say it is the summer that they all turned 14. So they're in that adolescent, pubescent age where they're figuring themselves out and everything is so innocent and yet seems like it could be the end of the world, you know? Every emotion that you feel is so overwhelming. The only people that understand you in that moment of time are not your family, not your parents, not any of the adults in your life. They are your best friends. One of them happens to be a very talented artist. The artist gets peer pressured into entering this competition that could potentially result in one of the artist's pieces being featured in a very famous art gallery. The second timeline that we follow is 25 years into the future, which is our present. And there is a young woman named Louisa who is an aspiring artist, struggling artist. She's going through a very traumatizing time in her life. She just lost her best friend and she's kind of figuring things out. And she cons her way into an art gallery where the painting that the artist had created is being featured. Without giving too much away, because I think you should go into this knowing as little as possible, the friends from the past and Louisa's lives intertwine. If you've read any of Fredrik Backman's books in the past, you know that he is a master at storytelling. He tells a story like no one else. It's very unique. He writes in a way that he captures every single human experience and is able to evoke every emotion that you could possibly have. In his characters, there are themes of grief and love, platonic love and friendship. There's a little bit of romance. It was absolutely incredible. I loved every single word in this book. I highlighted almost every paragraph in my arc. I already pre-ordered the physical copy, and when it comes out in May, I will be dropping everything that I'm doing again to physically annotate this book. The entire book's gonna look like a textbook because of the amount of highlighting and underlining I will be doing. And I don't know if the way that he tells a story is uniquely to him or if it's because of the Swedish translation, and that's just the way that Swedish authors write their books, in this very lyrical, emotive writing. I don't know how to explain it. Like, you have to read this book to understand what I'm trying to tell you. Simply incredible, very powerful, very impactful. I still think about these characters and their lives till this day. There is some emotional devastation in this book, which I think you can always expect in Fredrik Backman's writing. Ugh, you guys have to read it. Keep it on your radar. It comes out May 6th. Fredrik Backman, my friends. The next arc that I read is Our Infinite Fates by Laura Steven. This is a YA fantasy that I had a lot of hopes for. And those hopes weren't too high because I don't read a lot of YA anymore. In fact, I feel like a lot of the premises of books that come out these days that are YA would be so good as adult books. And this is one of them. The premise of this book is truly what brought me into it. The tagline of it is, "They've loved each other in 1,000 lifetimes. They've killed each other in every one." I'm locked in. That sounds like everything I could ever want in a fantasy romance, romantasy type of book. Unfortunately, the execution wasn't that great, and there were several reasons why I didn't particularly enjoy this book. One was because of the contents, and we'll get into it, right? Two, I feel like if it was an adult book, we could have explored and expanded so much more than what was actually done in this book as a YA. Okay, let me just read you the little synopsis. Evelyn remembers all her past lives. She also remembers that in every single one, she's been murdered before her 18th birthday by Arden, a supernatural being whose soul and survival is tethered to hers. The problem is that she's quite fond of the life she's in now, and her little sister needs her for bone marrow transplants in order to stay alive. If Evelyn wants to save her sister, she'll have to find the centuries-old devil who hunts her through each life before they find her first, figure out why she's being hunted and finally break the curse, and try not to fall in love. We follow different timelines in this book. We have the present, where Evelyn is trying to help her sister with bone marrow transplants, and then the other timelines follow every 18th year previously that Evelyn and Arden have lived through and have loved and killed each other. So we go back 18 years, back 18 years, back 18 years, up until the very beginning where this ancient curse started. Now that seems like a concept I would be all about. Why it didn't work for me particularly with this book is because in the past timelines that we follow, all we see are really their deaths. We're told time and time and time again that Evelyn and Arden in each lifetime have this very palpable, romantic, all-consuming, passionate love for each other, and we never see that. We're never shown that. We're just told that because when we follow them in their past timelines, like I said, all we really see is the moments leading up to their death and not necessarily the relationship that happened before that or the tension building through their relationship up until their deaths. All we really see is how their relationship has already unfolded right before they kill each other. After reading that type of event over and over and over and over again, it got very repetitive, and I didn't feel like anything with their relationship was really progressing. Even in their current timeline, all they really do is try to figure out how to break the curse and try to kill as much time as possible before their 18th birthday to do whatever they can to save Evelyn's sister. Their relationship takes a backseat. For me, it really lacked in emotional depth when it came to their relationship and also themselves as a character. I did appreciate that they weren't male and female in every lifetime. They were scattered all over the world, and their souls were reincarnated into different people in different places and in different bodies. So I did appreciate that. However, I don't know, it was just missing a lot more that could have been explored and, like I said, expanded on if this had been an adult novel. I think because it was YA, it felt very shallow surface, very juvenile. That's a personal thing for me. I think people who love YA fantasy and YA romantasy are really going to enjoy this. I think I am the outlier in this opinion because I know that YA is still such a huge genre that many people across all ages love. And this has a lot of elements in romantasy that most people really enjoy. I rated it 2 stars. Part of it was because I didn't really enjoy my entire experience, but also because I was a little bit disappointed in the setup of everything. I just wanted a lot more from it that I didn't get. Our Infinite Fates is already out. It came out on February 27th, so if you are interested in reading it, go pick it up at your library or in your indie bookstore and try it out for yourself and see how you feel about it. I'm really sad about the next one. I think it solidified the way that I feel about not reading YA anymore because it is another YA book, and it was an even bigger letdown than Our Infinite Fates, and that is Boys with Sharp Teeth. I wanted to read this because look at this fucking cover. Wow, phenomenal, stunning. Without the words, I would print this cover out and frame it. It is a work of art, and it's initially what drew me in. And then I read the synopsis and I said, wow, this sounds like something I'd be really interested in. It's basically a dark academia YA book about a girl named Marin who cons her way into a very exclusive high-end elite academy to get vengeance on the students that she thinks are responsible for her cousin's death. Her cousin was working as a custodian at the school, except he's not like Mr. Johnson from Abbott Elementary, like an older gentleman custodian. He was only a couple years older than her, and so he became really close friends with some of the students at this academy because they were closer in age. I don't remember what her cousin's name is. It's not even here in the in the synopsis, but her cousin would post pictures on social media with the students that he would hang out with because he would go to parties with them. And she noticed that there were 3 students that he particularly liked to hang out with and would always be photographed with. There were 2 boys and 1 girl. Those students were seen as the most popular kids in the academy. Of course. There are a lot of reasons why I absolutely hated this book. I rated it 1 star. 1, it was a disappointment because I had pretty high hopes for this. 2, it read like secret history fanfiction. These 2 students, Adrian Hargraves and Henry Wu, were the 2 boys that were very popular that she spent most of her time with, and they're the ones that are pictured in the cover. She had classes with them. This tried to be very philosophical the way that the secret history was. In these classes they would talk about Socrates and Aristotle, and it just tried to be something that it definitely was not. It tried to be way more serious than it actually was. Let's talk about her conning her way into this school. So she fakes an entire academic transcript, basically, makes it so that she had even higher scores than some of the smartest kids in this school to get in. She also gave the school a fake check for like thousands of dollars. And when that check bounced, they let her stay there until she was able to produce another check. Anyway, there's a bit of magical realism or paranormal activity that happens with like ghosts and spirits that she sees, and the boys that she is involved with are part of that. These characters were so boring for what the setup was supposed to be. In the middle of it, it got so repetitive and it dragged on. I had the audiobook for it and I dreaded every time I would pick the book up again to read it. The pacing was so slow. The characters were one-dimensional and contributed nothing to the story. By the end of it, I was just waiting for it to be done. This was a letdown, and I'm devastated because I love a dark academia book. But I think this just again proved that I am not a YA girly, no matter how many times I try to be. I forgot to mention too, the ending was absolutely unserious. It was ridiculous, out of nowhere. It didn't even make sense. The characters made outrageous decisions. There's nothing else for me to say about that. There really isn't. You want to know the worst thing about this though too? It comes out the day before my birthday. It comes out on April 8th. I'm a little bit offended because April is usually such a fantastic reading month. The best books get released in April, and I have the best reading month of the year usually in April. I'm glad I didn't read this in April, and I read it before. If any young adults were interested into the world of dark academia, I think this does give not the best not the best representation, but it does give a representation for dark academia. That was Boys with Sharp Teeth by Jenny Howell. Yeah. The next arc that I read comes out on May 13th, and it is another book that was on my highly anticipated releases for this year, and that is Immaculate Conception by Ling Huang. I am obsessed with this book. And the best way to describe this book is if you like the show on Netflix, Black Mirror, this reads like an episode of Black Mirror. Absolutely phenomenal. 10 out of 5 stars. Just like My Friends by Fredrik Backman, this is going to be a top read for me. This was absolutely incredible. No notes. Phenomenal. You need to read this book. I'm going to tell you what it's about, but I have to emphasize that this book was perfect. Not a single note could be given. This book was everything. I'm going to try to summarize what this book is about, although it's kind of complicated because there are so many working parts to it. This book is about Anka and Mathilde, who meet at this very prestigious art academy, and they are studying different mediums of art. So Anka is studying technological art, and Mathilde is a performative artist. Mathilde is the daughter of artists, so she has this reputation of being untouchable. She's well known because of her parents, but also because she has a natural talent and a natural gift for art. Her art is provocative and it pushes the boundaries. Anka is just trying to get by. She's just trying to create the best art that she can. She works with weaving technology into her art. These two are drawn together at the art school and become best friends, almost codependent on each other. Then their chosen mediums of art take them on separate paths in the beginning of their career. However, it eventually brings them back together in the most chaotic and unhinged sequence of events that I couldn't have ever imagined. I really don't want to spoil anything. I don't want to say too much because you should go into this blind and just be absolutely gagged by this book the way that I was. My jaw was on the floor for 60% of this book because I had no idea where it was going to go, and the decisions and the actions that these characters made blew my mind. None of the characters in this book are likable, but it's their flaws that make them more interesting and raw and captivating. There were twists and turns that had me pausing to stare at the wall and just process what I had just read. I can't. You need to just read this and experience for yourself just how absolutely insane this book was. This took me on an emotional and mental journey that when I look back on it, I'm like, I can't believe I read all of that. It went into really dark places that were horrifying because of how close to reality it was. I'm going to read something from my review that I think perfectly encapsulates what this book, to its heart, is about. I said, Miss Huang was able to capture the potent art world with its brutal nuances perfectly, while also explaining how it intertwines with the complicated tech world in a digestible manner. This book explored the ethics behind technology, its effects on art and humanity, and the terrifying places one's ego will take technological advancements to. Each of the characters' own stories offered sobering yet opposing perspectives on bodily autonomy and morality. There was no room to take a breath in this book. This is one of those stories that grips you and doesn't let go until the very end. And I stand by that. I stand by every single word that I said. If you are having an existential crisis, do not read this book because it will cause you to have an existential crisis. There are so many conversations that this book will start, and if you read it, it is so prevalent to what is going on in our world today. It's such a disruptive book. I think you should read this, if not for entertainment value, purely for educational reasons. You will learn so much about the human experience, and I think you will relate to a lot of what each of the characters are going through in some way, shape, or form. Incredible book. Powerful, powerful writing. Phenomenal. Please pick up Immaculate Conception by Ling Ling Huang. You will not regret it. The last arc that I have for this video is This Book Will Bury Me by Ashley Winstead. Ashley Winstead wrote In My Dreams I Hold a Knife, and I have been chasing the high that I got from reading that book ever since. None of her books after that have hit. This one was a little bit close to it, but not quite there yet. I still really enjoyed it. I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. It comes out on March 25th, so it comes out the end of this month. If you are into true crime or even curious about true crime, I think you should definitely read this book because it dives deep into that world and how all-consuming and unhinged it can get. This starts with Jane. She is a college student, and as she's at a typical college party, she gets a call from her mom that her dad has passed away. In her grief, this sends her down a spiral where she becomes obsessed with true crime. She joins a network online that is composed of a bunch of amateur sleuths who are very heavily involved in true crime. This becomes her entire life. She becomes completely involved in this group. She ends up dropping out of college. She joins this group of 5 people who have become very, very close friends who take trying to find the killers of these homicides very seriously. One of them is a hacker. One of them is a retired police officer. One of them is an older woman who just has a lot of time on her hands. The leader of the group used to be in the military, and then there's Jane, who is basically using this group as a crutch for her grief. Then there is this huge case about a group of sorority college girls who are murdered in their home, and it becomes this international headline, and there's tons of media coverage over it. And of course, they take it upon themselves to become the sort of spokespeople for the true crime community. That comes with its own backlash. Then they end up meeting in person to try and solve this huge case that turns into a serial killer type of case. There are twists and turns that I genuinely did not expect. I will say that there were moments where I felt like this was trying to be a lot deeper than it needed to be, because what Jane was going through, mourning her father and dealing with her father's death, she feels a little bit guilty because her father was overweight and he died because of a heart attack, and now, she's thinking, was there something I could have done? Like, is there some ulterior motive? Like, was there something deeper to my father's death than there actually was? And she was trying to find those answers by trying to figure out the killers of these cases that they were on. To me, it felt like the author was trying to emotionally connect the characters to the reader in that way, and this book does take an absolutely wild journey. Again, like I said, I was not expecting a lot of the things to happen that happened. I wasn't expecting the person behind all of it to be the person that it was. I enjoyed the mystery thriller aspect of this book. I enjoyed the sort of found family that she ended up having because of this group. And the way that this book is told is as if Jane is writing her own recollection of the events that happen and her involvement and her group's involvement as a response to the media backlash that they experience as amateur sleuths inserting themselves into this crime and the investigation. There will be moments in this book where she will say, like, this is what actually happened behind what you guys saw in that photo, or behind what that person said in social media. This is the truth of that moment. This is the truth of what we experienced and what happened. Everything that you've seen or read about us is wrong. It is said in the way as if Jane is the one writing this book. So I did like that aspect of the book, and I did enjoy that. Anyway, so I gave that 4 stars. I think it was a very entertaining read, and like I said, gives a lot of insight into the true crime world that I am not really a part of, but I am curious about, and it was really interesting to learn a lot of the behind the scenes aspects that go on into the true crime community. And me not being part of it, I actually don't know if it's a very correct or accurate representation of the true crime community, so you guys can let me know if you're part of that. So yeah, that was This Book Will Bury Me by Ashley Winstead. Like I said, it comes out the end of March, so check it out if you are interested in anything I just described. So that is a recap of all the arcs that I have read in the past few months, and hopefully after this video you will decide whether to read or not read some of these. I have a bunch more arcs to go through down the road, so I will probably do another one of these recap videos in a few months once I've read enough arcs. Let me know what arcs you guys have read that I haven't mentioned, and if you think they are worth reading or not. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!